morning. It is now 6 a.m. on the fifth day of CANNES, and I've figured that these vlogs are going to be every 2 days instead of every day, because quite frankly, there is so much to do on even a regular basis that this is just how we're going to go. So, first couple of days are now done, and I feel it's time to catch up on again what has been seen and answer some of the questions that have come in. So thank you everybody who has sent questions through Discord, through Blue Sky, on the YouTube. Just, it's really nice to see that people are interested, and thank you for the reaction to this. Once again, this video and everything is sponsored by people like you who are watching. It's entirely reader funded, and also thank you to the Finnish Art Foundation for giving me the grant to go to Cannes this year. It means a lot. Since we last spoke, the first film that I went to see was Two Prosecutors by the Russian filmmaker Sergei Loznitsa. This was a extremely slow-burning depiction of the Soviet Union in the 1930s during Stalin's reign of terror, and a prosecutor who starts to uncover the complaints that the Soviet Union's secret police and the system itself has not done what it should do in terms of, handling prisoners or basically anything. It's one of those films where you know from the very beginning where it's going to go, and part of the thrill and part of the fun comes from the slow burning sensation of just watching things unravel and go all to shit. The problem is that it's an incredibly beautiful movie. It looks like a painting, and I commented that while it looks like a painting, it moves about as fast as a painting does, meaning that it's a slow movie. Like, it draws out pleasure from really monotonous actions and from really very, very slow conversations. Everything just if something happens, it happens at a glacial pace. And the problem is that they scheduled this movie to start at 10:30 p.m., which means that it was not over until 1 in the morning, and you could tell people were tired. And it's a shame, because it's a good movie. I really do think Loznitsa is a fantastic filmmaker, but my goodness, this was something that should have been during the afternoon when everybody was awake, when everybody could have had a conversation about it. Instead, when it was over, I don't think there was much applause or anything, because people were just so quick to get out and wander back to their hotels. I still had a 2-kilometer walk back to mine, and I know that I sleepwalked that. It's not my favorite Loznitsa film. I think that he's a much better documentarian than he is a fiction filmmaker, because he seems to be much more interested in how people act for real. And that's one of those things that in fiction, just trying to capture reality like that, it doesn't really work. It has to be heightened reality, or it has to be just on the side of fiction for it to be interesting to watch. So a good film, but not an altogether successful one. And I do think that might change when I go see it again. I'm hoping to catch another screening during the festival, and if not, then at a later festival run, because I think that the hour may have affected my kind of tolerance for just how slow it actually is. Thursday morning of the festival was dedicated entirely to Mission Impossible. I had already gone to the Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie masterclass. I had checked out the madness of Tom Cruise, descending upon the festival with the red carpet, because they had the big premiere screening the previous night. There's no question that Cruise and the entire crew, have put everything they have into this movie. Problem is that they have put everything they have into this movie. It's nearly 3 hours long. It has no business being that long. If you saw The Rise of Skywalker, the last of the big Star Wars movies, episode 9, there's a scene in that really bugs me, and it's just on a storytelling point of view. They find this old dagger, ancient dagger, and then somehow they have to go to a planet where the Death Star apparently crashed on, and then they have to go to a certain point on the beach, hold up the dagger, and then like if they hold it up at exactly the right angle, the dagger points on the broken Death Star, where a hidden treasure is. And if you're like me, if you watched that scene and you were wondering like, hang on, didn't the Death Star blow up? And if it crashed here, who the hell forged this dagger thousands of years ago to, exactly pinpoint where a crashed ship would have a hidden, compartment? And, if all that stuff started bothering you, you're going to be bothered by basically everything in Mission Impossible. Because Mission Impossible is just, it's built on this foundation of, do you remember how much you liked the side character from the first Mission Impossible movie? And do you remember how this side character at one point held this one item for about 2 seconds as a gag? Don't worry, that character is coming back and he's going to bring up that item and he's going to show it, and it's going to mean a lot to everybody watching. It's weird. It doesn't need it. It's like these movies are just fine as their own installments, and this kind of bigger overarching narrative of, hey, we are a meaningful and important franchise. It just feels, it feels weirdly insecure for a film series that never has felt this insecure. Also, for something that's 3 hours long, it has very little action in the end. It's got 2 major set pieces, one of them which is fantastic, and one of them which is just fine, but like it's fragmented to the point that it doesn't really have the impact that it should. The really good one takes place inside of a submarine that is slowly like rolling down the ocean floor into a massive canyon in there. It doesn't make a lick of sense. Cruise and McQuarrie talked about during their Q&A about how they built this massive rig on gimbals that allowed them to actually build the torpedo bay, fill it with water, and then like start spinning it as the whole thing was spinning. And you can tell that that thing is a real set. It looks tremendously massive. It is terrifying in scope. And it's one of those things where you go and see and you realize that this is why you go to the movies, because on an IMAX screen it looks fabulous. And the other one, the plane sequence with the biplanes fighting each other, which has been teased in the trailer, it's fine. It's again more of those things where you're thinking that how on earth did nobody die making this, especially like how did Cruise survive, because some of the things he does are really, really, really impressive and really dangerous. But for the first time, I felt like that none of it served the story. It wasn't the kind of action that actually propelled the story forward or revealed anything about the characters. It was just there because they needed a big set piece. And it's kind of a shame because it hasn't been the case before. And my favorite in the series, Fallout, which is the 6th movie, that features only action sequences that tell story, that reveal character. And it actually feels like a more proper ending to the franchise than this does. Like, both of these 2 last movies, Dead Reckoning and The Final Reckoning, they feel more like demo tapes that, an artist releases years after they've kind of stopped making music actively. And they're like, this was supposed to be on this album and this was supposed to be on this album, but they just didn't kind of make the cut. They're not bad films, like entirely at least, but they're certainly not good enough to be a part of the main collection. And that's really a sad thing to end the franchise on, that it's like at the end of the 3 hours I was just exhausted and a little bit bored, and that's something I have never felt with a Mission Impossible movie before. After that was Dossier 137, which is a French film about the 2018 riots, the Yellow Jacket riots. It is meant to be a fictional film based off of real events of police brutality during this time. It is a very French film. It's almost to the point that it just refuses to explain any of the details or any of the political aspects to anybody who isn't French. They just, they talk about places and locations that are only familiar to you if you have lived in Paris or lived in that grander area of France. It's about a internal police investigator who investigates her colleagues, and specifically when they've overstepped their bounds and done something violent or broken the law in some way. And she's constantly faced by scrutiny by her peers. She's insulted by her ex-husband. She's just, consistently felt like that she's just a thorn in their side for trying to maintain a scenario where the cops don't become this paramilitary force, which is of course what some of the people want. For the most part, It's a really fascinating and very meticulously built procedural about how justice works, or in this case, doesn't work within the French system. It's often extremely distressing to watch because bureaucracy already scares the shit out of me, uh, just because I don't understand it, and I really hate the notion of a bunch of nameless entities deciding on what happens to my life. Just looking at paperwork. Laura Drucker, who plays the lead, is fantastic. She has this steely, vulnerable, and very humane presence. Like, she feels like a really rounded, real character. And every time the story hops into completely unbelievable territory, there's a particularly dumb scene where she follows a potential witness throughout Paris and follows her home and like starts harassing her about how you have to do the right thing, and I'm a loose cannon but I get results, damn it. Just dumb things that really had no place in a story that's otherwise very, very realistic. My big problem is that it rarely feels like a movie. It more feels like a TV episode, like like an HBO prestige drama that probably could have been split into two parts. It's not particularly long. It's just under 2 hours, but it's got this kind of TV pacing to it. Fine film. I think it's worthwhile seeing, especially just for the fact of being able to kind of see how uh, police work is seen in France. But I think there's also an issue that it refuses to take a side on these things. Like, it's very clearly places the character in this kind of midway point about how, yes, some police are bad, but not all police are bad, and we should, incremental movements towards something better. It's very centrist, and if you don't have the stomach for centrism, like I don't, I think it's going to rub you the wrong way in a number of ways. My favorite film of the festival so far. This is something I went into blind, and it's something that I'm not going to tell a lot about because I think that if you want to see this, you should also go in as blind as you can. Don't watch trailers, don't read anything about it, just go see it. It is called Sirat. It is by a Moroccan filmmaker called Olivier Lax. The best way I can explain it and give the setup is that somewhere out in the Tunisian desert, there is a massive rave. The father and his son arrive there looking for their daughter, the son's sister, who has gone missing about a year earlier. They start asking around. They've clearly been at this for a while. It's unclear how long, where the mother is, what's going on, why they're so disheveled, how much time has passed, and or whatever has happened in the last year. They meet up with a found family of ravers who are all in their own ways a little bit broken, a little bit odd, who say that they're going to another more distant rave somewhere in the Tunisian desert. It's too dangerous for them to follow, and they shouldn't. And the father and son are insistent that we're going to nonetheless. And they agree that fine, we'll all go together. And the further they go into the desert and the further they approach this rave, the more things start to unravel, and the more it becomes clear that this whole adventure is going to test them beyond their limits of humanity or their senses or just any level of decency. And what I will say is that whatever you now expect based off of this, and whatever you will expect based off of the first 10 minutes to 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I can almost guarantee you that the film is going to defy that expectation in a way that, at least for me, was absolutely thrilling. When the movie ended, there was a rousing set of applause, but I heard some boos as well, and I met a couple of people who said that they had booed at the end of the movie. And it was because they felt that the movie did not give answers to the context and to the wider questions that it had posed. And I think that that's kind of the point. It makes a very salient point about just what becomes necessary, what becomes vital when you reach a point in life, or a point that I hope nobody ever has to reach, where only survival matters. I think this was a masterclass in sustained tension. Like, I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. Like, I was unnerved by the character settings. I was unnerved by the place they were in. I was unnerved by every little action, and every time it lulled you into a false sense of security, it would do something that would jolt you out of it. And these weren't cheap scares. These were something that you could see. Like, I think if I go see it again, and I will, I will be able to see the tragedies coming, a long while ahead, because Lux, The director really does build them up in a way that you should see what's about to happen. But then, like, when the inevitable does happen, it's much more horrifying because it just feels like that there's nothing you can do to prevent it. There's a helplessness in, like, trying to catch something that you know you're not going to catch. It's, like, just out of reach. And that's the entire movie, is that sensation, that little brief window where you know the thing you're about to reach for is gonna slip away. That's a really intense and weird feeling to have for 2 hours. That's exactly what the film manages, and it's my favorite film of the festival so far. It is an absolute masterpiece. It's called Sirat. Go see it if you can, and just don't look up anything about it. Just go in, watch it blind. Come back and tell me what you thought about it, because I think a lot of you are gonna love it. Which brings me to my least favorite film of the festival. I'm not a huge Ari Aster fan to begin with. I did like Midsommar, and I kind of liked Hereditary, but like Beau is Afraid, I just did not like. And I think that he's one of those filmmakers that exists to push buttons, and I think I inherently find those filmmakers kind of boring. Because if your entire whole shtick is that you just want to prod and annoy audiences, you're not saying a lot. And that was the case with Eddington. Like, on the surface, it should be great. It should be exactly what I'm looking for, because it's a modern day Western. I love Westerns and I love neo-Westerns. That's also a satire about 2020, the COVID pandemics, the first really bad year of the COVID pandemic. It's got Joaquin Phoenix, and it's got Pedro Pascal and Emma Stone, and it's about the way people reacted to the pandemic and the way that we saw in what a bad situation our society was in, the Western society at least, during that time. The problem, and this is a big problem, the problem is that this is a film that, like South Park, sits in a really comfortable and really smug centrist place where it's just sitting around at the back of the theater going, it's like, yeah, well, I'm smarter than all of you, and you really should just listen to me, and I'm going to make fun of both of you, to the point that it explicitly states that people who believe in the Black Lives Matter movement, people who believe in that COVID is a threat, people who want to do their part to maintain a social structure and keep others safe, that they are equally laughable and equally dumb and equally misguided as the extreme right and all the mega types. It's a horrible place for a satire. It's a horrible place for a comedy. It's a lazy and mean and utterly pointless way of creating a movie. And for almost 3 hours, it's like 2 hours and 40 minutes or something, watching that spiral happen and watching the film consistently take a both sides argument to these things was just draining. And it wasn't draining in the kind of good way where you're seeing something that has something meaningful to say. It was just draining in the way of, like, the way that you're like a dumb friend you have who just keeps going like, yeah, both sides suck, bruh. Like, look it up, bruh. I watched a YouTube video on it. That's this film in a nutshell. It's that person. And what's worse is that Joaquin Phoenix is a good actor, and Pedro Pascal is a great actor, and luckily he's not in it for a lot. He's in a very minor part, which, justice for Pedro. He gets out of this, vindicated. It's just a really uncurious and uninteresting movie because it just doesn't want to even have a conversation. It just wants to sit around and fling crap at people because it thinks that it's smarter than everybody else. And it thinks it's in a better place than everybody else because it can do this. But it just comes off as really removed from any sort of conversation and just comes off as this kind of a pampered child. And I really hated it. I hated every minute of it. And I think that it's not the kind of movie that we need. It's not the kind of movie that brings anything to the conversation. It's got a right to exist, but I just think it's one of those films that in a couple of years, it's going to look like a blemish on everybody's CV. They're just going to look at it and kind of go like, well, yeah, we did this movie. We had good intentions. Like, in the same way how now everybody tries to pretend like Gal Gadot's Imagine video never happened. That's this movie. It's Gal Gadot's Imagine video. Right, that was all the movies I've seen again in the last 2 days. So it's been kind of busy. I also went to a masterclass or like an interview with Hirokazu Koreeda and Chie Hayakawa, who are really, really great Japanese filmmakers. Both of them, they have just made amazing movies in the last couple of years. I mean, Koreeda has a much longer career. Hayakawa has now made two films, Renoir, which I'm seeing on Sunday. And she made a great film called Project 75 a couple of years ago, which was about the whole right to choose when you die, how growing old feels like. It was a very devastating drama, and I really loved it. I'm really excited about Renoir. I didn't get to ask them questions. It was more like a guided discussion, but it was really fascinating to hear about them talk about just their different approaches to films and what interests them. And especially because Hayakawa, she's in her mid-40s. She's been working as a kind of an artist, and her first film was made 2 years ago. So she got a little bit of a later start in her filmmaking career, but it's really clear that she's a powerful voice in the filmmaking scene, and I really can't wait to see what she comes up with. I'm hoping to still grab an interview with her before the festival is over. But if not, look for my Renoir review down the line when I get to go see it. Right, questions. The first question comes from a friend of mine on Discord who asked that, is it just a film festival? Because it's the Cannes Film Festival. And that's a really good question because it's not entirely obvious, and it is not. There's, of course, the big film festival around it, but it's also built around the Marche de Film, the film market. That's located on the bottom floor and then like in the separate pavilion building. And then like, of course, all around the city of Cannes, where all the distributors have, they've rented out hotels, they've rented out yachts, there's the world's largest catamaran that has parties going on. And the market of film is actually where a lot of Cannes really happens. It is a place where people come to make deals on unpublished scripts. They come to meet producers for packaging deals that they've started filming or they have filmed, and they're looking for more money to finish the film or distribute it. They come with finished products who are just looking for a place to find them, like on a streaming service. And a lot of the deals go behind closed doors, but then there's also this entire area at the bottom floor of the Palais de Film, where it's just people showcasing what they have and trying to get people to come to other countries to film, talk about the tax incentives. It's really fascinating. You need a separate pass to really get into it. It's really meant for like industry professionals, but if you have a press pass, you can kind of wander through the area. And what really was surprising to me is I heard from a couple of distributors there that they're kind of wary about press people coming in, because apparently some people come in there just to laugh at the posters and laugh at the films that are being sold. Because, of course, not all of these are. It's not like you go in there and you see, Schindler's List or see like the next Citizen Kane. You might, but you don't know. You just see the poster that's been created for the film to sell. But a lot of critics apparently come in there to take pictures and laugh at them, which I haven't seen this happen personally, but I heard it from people there, and it's just, that seems really distasteful to me. It seems like that's not the function of a critic. That's not the function of any decent person. Sure, not all of these films will be good, but you don't know that, and there's a really petty and insecure aspect to coming in and just making fun of somebody who's just trying to sell their art. I don't understand that. That really struck me as a horrible thing. But I like going to the market. I like going and meeting people there. I've met some really, really fantastic and smart filmmakers and distributors there. Some of my friends, or people who I'd like to call friends, who have films I reviewed in the past, are there currently selling their films. And I'm so excited every time I hear that some of them have made a sale. That means that they get to make another film, or that they get to go make their passion project. Because that means like in a year I get to see what they've dreamed of. And it's a really wonderful place to be. It's a great learning experience. I've gone and listened to a couple of the lectures there about just the side of film, like what sells right now, what are audiences flocking to, what are the changes that are happening in terms of distribution. Like a couple of years ago, it was so that if you went to one of these, you could listen to them talk about how ownership was not going to be a thing, that it's now you get a salary from a streaming service, or you get like a single paycheck and that was it. And now in the last year, we've had a couple of major deals happen in the industry where the filmmaker has retained the rights to their movies. That, after a certain period of time, that reverts back to them. Most famously now is Ryan Coogler with Sinners, and that was everybody was talking about that. Now they were now talking that what does the filmmaking industry look like, and who gets those deals, and what happens if they find something that they really want to buy, but then the filmmaker demands that they get the rights to their film back after a time. That this kind of endless ownership of IP that someone like David Zaslav at Warner Brothers is trying to push. That they famously just a couple of days ago said that we own the rights to Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter forever. They're eternally ours. And I think that's coming to an end, and I think that's going to disrupt the industry quite radically. And then there's a lot of talk from distributors about the whole physical media ownership that's actually making a slow, like it's not massive yet, but it's making a slow comeback. And I think that it's because people are getting sick and tired of the increasing prices and the lessening catalogs of streaming services. And there's like the Shout Factory people are here. They're showing the restored 4K print of John Woo's Hard Boiled, and they've done amazing work on restoring that print and just making sure that it looks the best that it can, especially for home video. So all of them are at the market, and that's an entire side of Cannes that doesn't get talked about enough. But I think that is something that if you're truly a fan of film that you're really interested in, and if you ever get a chance to come here and you ever get a chance to just wander through the market, I warmly recommend it. Go check it out. Go talk to people and just, bravely go ask them questions. I think that if you show a genuine curiosity to it, you're going to get a really good response out of people who are there to spread their love of film. It's really cool. And this question comes in from Mike on WhatsApp, from one of the film groups. Asks, is there something about the festival that I don't like? It's gonna sound very silly because it's only my first really full festival. Last year the 4 days kind of gave a taste of it, and I think it's solidified now. There's an aspect of performance or performative participation that I don't like about the festival. I get why, for example, people applaud when the Cannes logo comes up at the beginning of every screening, because every time it starts off with the stairs rising to the heavens with the Palme d'Or coming up and revealing the Cannes Film Festival. There's no ads. It just does that, tells you're at Cannes, and people applaud that. That's fine. That's kind of cool because it does give the sense of communion that it's like we are here for a specific purpose. We're here to celebrate art. But then you have people who film that opening in the theaters. They pull their phones out specifically to do that. There's people who shout out inside jokes from the festival that somebody has heard from years and years ago, that something happened and now people yell out a name or yell out something at the screen because they want to be part of that collective experience. And that kind of stuff really just rubs me the wrong way, because that's now making it more about you than it is about making it about the festival. And then there's what I call the weaponized applause, which is when people they applaud because they feel like they need to. Some of you, if you've been following the Cannes listings, there's this whole talk about when a premiere happens, that how long was the applause at the end of the movie. The measure of was the film received well. Like anything below 7 minutes of applause is terrible, and anything below or above 10 minutes is really good. Who gives a shit? Really, who if the film is good, you're gonna hear about it. It was really kind of terrible to watch that, because Robert De Niro, for example, when he came for the Palme d'Or, really did not want people applauding him like that, and he kept making gestures for them to stop, and people would just continue, and they stood up for a standing ovation and just continued applauding, because it was this kind of a game now of how long they can applaud. And it really got to the point where De Niro just started making a gesture of stop it, and was visibly getting pissed off. And I've seen that happen now a couple of times where the filmmaker, Cruise, apparently cut off the applause to just started talking when Mission Impossible ended. He was not having it. And I think that that's something that is going to see a change in the coming years, because it's not a case of celebrating the film anymore. It's a case of making it about the audience and making it about this weird parasocial relationship with them. And then there's just a case of general manners. Again, it's 30,000 people who come in there, and it's not just regular people, but it's a lot of critics who come here who've been here for many, many years. And there's a lot of strict regulations, you can't bring in water, you can't bring in drinks, you can't bring in snacks. perfectly understandable. They could not clean the places in time, but it's also because some people just don't seem to have any kind of care about how it reflects on others, how you're behaving. So I've heard stories about people cutting their toenails in the theater because they're just busily going from one screening to another. There's people who come into the theater and just make it a point about that if they don't like the movie, they're like sitting in the middle of the rows and they get up and they loudly start moving and getting out and open their phone to start tapping a message that they're leaving the movie, or they start yelling at the screen or booing. There's a lot of this kind of stuff that it feels like that people just want to make a point about that I am at the Cannes Film Festival, I'm going to behave in a way that's completely unbefitting the festival itself. And it's baffling to me that somebody would make the trip, make this long journey to the festival and pay the exuberant prices of staying here just so that you can not have a good time and not, fully invest into the experience and make it so that you're just there to make it about yourself. I don't get it. I think it's really crass and it's really off-putting, and those are like the really things that I don't like. And I really think that, especially if you're a critic, if you have a press pass, trying to make it about you is really unprofessional. It's your job. It's your job to, at least if you don't like the movie, to at least show enough respect for the movie to sit through it. Like, I didn't like Eddington. I would not dream of booing it. I would not dream of getting up in the middle of the movie, walking out and making a show of getting out of there. Would I want to? Would there be a base instinct like just sitting there grinding your teeth going like, I really dislike this? Yeah, there would. But I'm going to save my booing onto the page when I write about it, and I'm going to do it in a way that is at least professional and that explains why this kind of stuff doesn't work for me. On that note, I'm going to try and not leave it on a bummer note this time. There are good things. I want to say something about the good things that I do love. I love the fact that no matter where you go, you can usually turn to somebody and just start a conversation about a movie, and they'll at least be receptive and have this kind of excited and animated conversation about what they've seen. There are people here. Again, it's over 30,000 people. You're gonna have some idiots involved, but you're gonna have so many people who are excited about every aspect of the festival, who are just wide-eyed, going from place to place and just enjoying the fact that they get to see amazing films that might not get releases in this climate that we have right now, where not all movies get theatrical distributions, and that they get to talk about movies for almost like a year in advance and just celebrate cinema. It should represent this kind of place where art gathers, that is a pinnacle of what the film industry can be. And if it doesn't always hit that, that's fine, because at least we're aiming for it. At least it's, trying to get to a point where we can just say that at least we have Cannes. At least we have a place that filmmakers and film lovers can call home. I spoke to a film critic, a French film critic who has been coming to the festival for 33 years, which means that she started coming here when I was almost 3 years old. And she started coming here at that point, and she's been coming here for my entire life. And she gave me a lot of advice about what to expect at the festival and stories about how it's changed. But one thing that she maintained was that it was a community, that every year she comes and she sees friends and she watches movies with her friends. And that's exactly what Cannes should be. That's Cannes at its finest. I hope to see you. I hope to go see movies with you. And I hope that we can continue building a community of film lovers for another 33 years. All right, I gotta get ready for the next film. I'm going to go see Sons of Neon Night, which begins in about an hour and a half, and then it's films all the way until midnight again. So I'll see you in a couple of days.